thank you once again for tuning in to Free Association Over Coffee. And as we've stated before, if this is the first time that you're listening, it's really a natural conversation in psychology. Free association is speak of whatever you like to speak about. And today, we're going to speak freely about something that's very, very important. And a very good friend of mine and colleague, Ms. Gloria Hunt, has joined us today. And we will just start with an introduction, and then we will take it from there.
Well, thank you for having me. I thought it was a really big honor when you asked. And like I had mentioned, I've been looking and wanting to do a podcast on foster care because that's my specialty.
Wonderful.
So when we started talking and you were talking about you were doing a podcast, I was like, the ears were up and I was all excited. I'm like, okay, I want to hear and I want to know more. So it's awesome that you're doing this because I'm sure, besides my topic, you're going to have so many other topics that are going to be really interesting for people and really, heartfelt, I think.
Right. So today, the subject for you will be specifically foster care and foster parenting and the whole process.
I definitely want to tell my story.
Good.
I want to encourage others to hopefully, open their doors in their homes to children that are in need. I never thought that I'd be as experienced as I am in this topic. I think when we started our foster care journey, we really did it with the hopes of adoption, which, 5 years later, soon to be 6 years, we're now in that process. Right. My son now will soon, be adopted. So it was what we started with and hopefully what we'll be ending with, but it's definitely a long journey.
Can you tell us a little bit of you, who you are, your story, what you do professionally?
Sure.
How this came about for you?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of history on me.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you said my name's Gloria Hunt. I am Colombian American, first generation. My parents both came from Colombia. They both came from basically Medellin. And they came to this country, immigrants. My mother came first, my father came after. And they got married here, at the cathedral in Patterson.
Awesome.
And they had 3 children. I'm the oldest of 3. And my mom and her sisters are here. We have a very big family. I have 25 first cousins.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful network of family. And having been raised in such a loving home, and I think having been given the gift of knowing how to, raise your children and being such a loving parent gave me the gift and the blessings that I wanted to pass on to other children.
Right.
To lead into that. And then I became a teacher, and I specifically wanted to teach in Patterson because I wanted to work with that bilingual community. I wanted to help the bilingual students. So the fact that Patterson was our closest, place, this is where I came to teach. I've been here for 23 years.
That's wonderful.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I can't believe I've been doing it for so long. So it's a gift also.
That is a gift. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the kids are blessed to have you as a teacher.
I love my children. I call them my children, especially the ones that are really in need. I will reach out and be like, I'm your mom here at school, so if you need something, you know who to come to. Whether it's a boy or a girl, I like to connect with them and let them know that they have that protector
Right.
in the building, and that's what I consider myself.
And you and I work at one of the schools, obviously, so that we actually have very similar students that we see, that we interact with, that we try to help. So it's really good, to see you doing what you're doing it is impactful because I see it in the way that the kids and the students respond to you.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it'll bring me to my story of how I got started.
Okay.
So when I was a third grade teacher, I taught at Roberto Clemente, I had a student, and he was of Dominican descent, and he was always sleeping, and he was always tired. And he went from not knowing any English to, being a failing student to finally, starting to do really well. And then all of a sudden, he's sleeping in class and sleeping in class. And, I sat down with him and I said, what's going on? And he said, I'm in a house where the lady who's taking care of us, I have 3 siblings. She gives us rice and water for food, and she makes us wash cars at night. And I said, wash cars at night? I was like, okay, this is not normal. Something's going on. Then I found out that he was in the foster care system.
Okay.
So then I reached out to them and I said, okay, whoever's taking care of this child is not taking care of him properly. He was doing really well, and now he's telling me that he's eating, rice and water. Well, the division went out and investigated, and it was actually a foster mom who was misusing the system.
Oh, wow.
So the child got removed from that home, and then I'd say probably like a month later, the father came to my building with his social worker, and he said he was there because he wanted his child to stay in our school, because he said his child, was in the foster care system. His father had been wrongly accused of a crime and had been incarcerated, but now he had gotten out, and now he had his children, and he was coming back because he wanted his son to stay in that school. Back then, they didn't have what we call now, which is the Stability Act. So New Jersey put in place the Stability Act, where the children, when they go into the foster care system, will hopefully stay in the same school, so they have some form of normalcy.
Right, and consistency, structure.
Right. But they didn't have that back then.
Right.
So that student was being moved to a different school, but since I had such a good relationship with him, the father didn't want him moved. Well, back then, my principal at the time said, no, you moved. He now lives in this, area of Patterson. He needs to move. So he was going to a different school. So I asked the man for his phone number and for his information, because I knew that there was 4 children.
Right.
And when I asked the man, I said, where's your wife? Where's the mom? And he said, back in the Dominican Republic. I came by myself, and I had I'm here with my children. And I said, all right, let me see how I can help you. This was right before Christmas.
Wow.
Right? So I had this man's number, and I knew this situation. I reached out to my family, same network I was just talking about. And I said to them, guys, there's a family in need, and there's someone that I feel like they need us.
Right.
And they said, all right, what are the ages? Tell me more. And I called everybody, and we actually got them a really good Christmas, where we got them gifts, and we got them clothes, and we got them the necessities.
The whole family.
The whole family.
Wow.
It was gifts for the father and gift for the brothers, the sisters. But it was an experience for me where I was like, okay, someone is doing wrong in the system, but not everyone is going to do wrong.
Right.
And I felt just touched by this boy and his story. Well, a couple years later, I'm still at the same school. Guess who comes knocking at the door, looking for me?
The parents? Oh, the
mother.
child? Oh, the mother of the children.
The mother finally
Wow.
got brought to the, from the Dominican Republic.
Right.
And when she came specifically looking for me because, I know I skipped over the part that we went to their house and we gave them all the gifts and we gave them a beautiful Christmas. But, I had not really kept in contact with them. I think that was like our goodbye.
Right.
But always, because the child had gone to the other school. And then the mother, I know I'm skipping around, I'm sorry.
And that's okay.
The mother had come to the school years later, and she had come to thank me. And she just said, thank you. She knew what I had done for them that Christmas.
Think of the impact that must have been.
Oh, it was huge. It was really
For everybody,
big.
right?
Yeah. No, for me, it was just such a touching situation where it was one of my babies, one of my students
Right.
that were going through this. And yet I, as a teacher, could only, watch from the outside and at the time not really do that much.
Right.
Which is why then, I continued to follow the family till I felt like I could help them and then say, okay, I'm done, and back away. So that was my first experience with foster care and really knowing a child that was in the system.
And how was that reunion with the mother who had obviously had
I
heard
cried.
of you?
I cried. She cried. And she was like, can I just hug you? And I was like, yes. And then we just hugged each other. And it was just one of those situations where I felt like, all right, you know what? We just did something really good. We did something
Wow.
big.
Huge. You impacted a whole family.
Yes. Yes.
That's incredible.
And again, it was with the help of my family. Because
Right.
without them, I wouldn't have been able to, have done what we did.
Exactly.
So that was my first experience with it.
That's fantastic. And then what led you to, this lingered obviously within you to think of how many other children or how many families or how many situations
Yeah.
can we intervene in?
So that was like the first drop, I'd
Right.
say. Like the first little experience with it. And
The
then,
initial inspiration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before I had gotten married, my husband and I had talked about adoption. For some reason, I had always wanted to adopt. So my husband and I had actually filled out paperwork to adopt from Colombia. So
Before you got married, you were thinking of adoption?
before I got married, I was
Wow.
thinking of adoption. Yes.
How many years have you been married?
18.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That's good.
I know, right? It's crazy.
So you were having this discussion even
But even
before.
when we were dating, it was just like, listen, this is one of the things I want to do. Are
Yeah.
you, are you interested in doing this? Are you willing to, adopt? And he was like, yeah. But it was a conversation when you're dating. I think it's
Right.
almost like, yeah, but
In passing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
so after that, we got married, we had kids, and with this situation, like you said, it left something in me still thinking I wanted to do this. And then when we decided that we were going to foster, it was actually my husband's idea because we had filled out the paperwork in Colombia. We had started the process. It's $20,000 to adopt a child in need.
In Colombia?
Yes.
South America, Colombia. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And to me, that was so like, wow, there's so many children in need and so many people that want to do it.
And you want to help.
But yet there's this big expense. Like here you have to pay all this,
Just to start the process and receive a child.
To receive-
$20,000.
And that was probably maybe like 8 years ago.
It's a lot of money.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then when we came home, he got cold feet. And he was like, I don't think I can do this. And I said, okay, I understand. We have to both be on board. We have
Right.
to,
A joint decision.
Yeah.
As husband and wife.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he, for him, he didn't want to do it. So then it was one of those things that I thought we were done. I thought, okay, we're not going to do it. And then he said, you know what, why don't we try here in the States? And then I guess that's when the foster care thing started. With foster care, it's an experience that you have with children. And if you do foster to adopt, like what we had done, I was able to, you're able to have that experience with the child and then see if it's a child that fits in your family. And the goal, hopefully for you is that it will fit, that child will fit in your family.
Right.
And it will work out.
Right.
But it's one of those things that there's a lot of reasons, that sometimes it doesn't.
And so when you started doing this, was this something that was, the information was there, it was easy to maneuver, you kind of knew what the steps were, or did you learn that along the way?
You learn that along the way, and I think it's a really hard process, and I'm glad you bring that up because I think that's something that stops people from doing it. I think because it is a long process,
Right.
and because it can be a difficult process, and I don't think there's anyone like holding your hand through the process, that it can make someone say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. But we started it and we did it, and it was a long process. I'd say we started in June, filling out the application. Then we do a home study. They come to your house, and you have a home inspection. And then you have classes that you have to go to.
Right.
So after doing the process,
Where do you even get an application if you wanted to do that?
you call DCP&P.
Okay, so the Department of
basically-
Children Protection and Placement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So all these kids are coming in through this department that is basically protecting children and minors from abuse and neglect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they go out, they do investigations, and then they remove children from their homes.
Yes.
Okay. And they're supervising those children.
Yes. And another big important factor in my decision, something that helped is my sister actually works for the division, but she
Oh.
works in the inspection department. So she goes into homes and she inspects their homes and says whether they're able to. And she knew my husband and I were going through the situation of thinking of adoption and thinking of doing it. And she also had said, why don't you think about this? Like she also planted the second seed,
Oh, that's
Or
interesting.
she started talking to us about it. Like she said, I think you'd be a good fit.
So she's a case manager at DCP&P?
She's an inspector.
Oh, so she goes out and does the investigation into the homes?
No,
or
she inspects the home to approve the home for their license.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So foster placement, she inspects the home of the child that's going to be placed.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, wow. It's
So
interesting.
my case for my home, for example, is with Trenton because I can't have anyone around here license me because of a conflict of interest because
Okay.
my sister works for the division.
Right.
So someone from Trenton has to come to my house in Northern Jersey
Right.
to be able to inspect me because of the
Right.
fact that my sister
Right.
works.
Not to be biased, to be
Right,
objective.
exactly.
Right.
Right.
So she then informs you that this is the way to go. Was this the initial catalyst that kind of started the process to?
I would say that she was the second one. So I think, my student was the first, and then my sister also continued to,
Reinforce?
Yes.
Right.
yeah.
And then what happens?
So then we fill out our license,
Right.
right? So we get it, we get our license,
And
and
you were approved?
we're approved, and we're thinking, okay, we're gonna wait a couple of weeks to get a call, Sure enough, the same week that we got our license, we get a call for our first placement. And we were nervous. We were like, oh my goodness. We're like, oh my God, a child is coming into our house. Like, this is now real.
Yeah.
So I do the typical, good mom thing. I bake cookies and, we get pizza for dinner. And we're like, okay, we're getting a child. There were two because I wanted brothers and sisters. I didn't want a child by himself. So I didn't want a
You
child.
wanted siblings.
I wanted siblings.
Right.
Yeah. And sure enough, I got a call for a set of siblings. It was a boy and a girl, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and,
Within the first week?
within the first week. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, you have to remember, too, I have 3 biological boys that are in the home, and I have to again, everything for us is a family discussion. Like we have to
Right.
talk about it. We have to make sure everyone's on board, you know. So the boys, they're thinking they're getting a play date, you know. They're like, oh, sure, yeah, yeah, you know.
Another younger brother or sister. Right, right.
And it wasn't one, it was two, and it was definitely a journey, and I love it. Like I love fostering. It was such a good experience. It's been such a good experience. And I think even for my kids, it's such a learning experience for them to be able to do this.
And how did he do on that first placement of the children?
So our first, to this day, I get to see him and still know him, and I'm gonna call him K. 'Cause we don't use names, and
Right.
you know, the first placement comes into the house, and we're thinking, okay, these kids are gonna come in crying, sobbing, like it's gonna be so difficult because they've just been removed from their family's home. Like this is a really big, you know, big deal, and it's very serious and it's very sad. And you know, Kay comes in smiling, and you know, he comes in and he's just like checking out the house. So this is where I'm gonna live. This is my new place. And we're like, yeah, like we're waiting for those tears. We're waiting for like, and he's just like, okay, cool. He's like, I can stay here. We were like, okay,
Wow.
wow, yeah.
How old was he?
He was little. He
Like
was little.
5?
Actually, no, I think they were 4 and 5. They were 4 and 5. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was 4.
Wow.
He was little.
Very, very, very in tune, very attentive to the environment.
I think they come from such difficult situations
Yeah.
that, and besides, children are resilient.
Right.
Children are resilient, but besides that, they come from really difficult situations. So I think the fact that he's coming from a really hard place, and then, you know, finds that he's going to have a bed. He has his own bed. He shared a room with his sister in the beginning. But for him, he goes from having nothing. I think it was one bed for, you know, a bunch of siblings, and it was a very hard situation. So I think he just thought of comfort, like the human, you know,
Natural.
instinct
Right.
of, okay, I'm going to have a bed and I'm going to have food.
Yeah. The simple pleasures of life
Right,
that we
right,
take
right.
for granted. To
Yeah.
him, it was like, wow, this has to be good.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. And it was an experience. It was like,
Plus, you had pizza and cookies.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And the house, I purposely named the house.
I mean,
like-
if any house that I go into has pizza and cookies, I'm welcomed. So
I did. I had it like really cute and comfy for the kids, and all the stuffed animals.
he's like,
and
this is
toys,
good. This
and-
is a great
yeah.
start. Okay.
I tried. You know, I really did. Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. and it was a journey. I mean, it's quite an experience to just bring in 2 extra. I imagine.
They're strangers. You don't know them.
Yeah.
Your kids was like, who are these kids, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That they will be open and resilient to say, yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
To see the need, you know, the message that you're giving your kids in terms of the good all that you have that we may take for granted. These children don't, and they come in and they really appreciate this home.
But then that's what happens.
Hmm.
Is that's where the conflict comes in, because those kids took to us like, what is it, bread to butter? Like they loved us and they'd hug us and kiss us, and it was
Like
like this great
glue.
thing. And then my boys were like, well, what about me? You know
Oh,
what I
it's
mean?
interesting.
Like then the jealousy came in.
How long did that
Yeah.
take?
Not long. Not long. Yeah.
A couple of weeks.
And I went from having 3 boys to having, you know, a boy and a girl. So now
Right.
I'm doing the little girl's hair, and I'm putting her in dresses.
So you
and-
went from 3 to 5 and a little girl in those 5.
Yeah.
Imagine. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they also in the process, like when they come to visit you, because they come once a month. You know, the division comes in once a month to see you and to check everything and
How-
make sure it's
how
okay.
things are
and
going.
You have your own resource worker and everything, and they, you know, continually they'll ask the children, "How are you guys doing? Is everything okay?" You know.
the adapt, because you have to adapt. Everybody's
Absolutely.
adapting to a new normal.
Yeah, and there is no normal. It is the new normal. I call it, you know, beautiful chaos. Like that's what I had in my house. It was beautiful chaos.
Beautiful chaos.
Yeah.
I like that term.
Well, it was just, you know, so much going on. Imagine 5 kids running around, and, you know, so it was an experience. But we made the most of it, where we would do things that were new experiences. I think it made me a better mom, because then I'd be like, all right, let's go to the museum. Let's go to the zoo. Like, what have these kids not done? We took them to Disney,
Wow.
you know? So it was things that I wanted them to experience while they were with us. And I say that each child that's come into our home came with a purpose for them and for us. So in other words, we had something we had to learn. They had something to learn. And I can look back and say, you know, this child needed to learn how to love. This child needed to learn how to laugh.
Right.
You know, and it's simple things that we take for granted, you know. Yeah, you love your family. But did you ever realize that sometimes you need to learn how to love when you've been put in a situation where no one around you loves you? You know?
That's powerful.
So it's been so interesting and so, for me, educational, because I just keep learning. Every child that comes in, it's a new experience and it's a new lesson.
Right. So you're learning, you're receiving a lot more than what you're giving.
Absolutely. 100%.
Your whole family.
Absolutely.
And this has happened. How long were those two initial placements that were there? How long did they stay with you?
They were with me for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
They were with me for a year and a half. Yeah.
Okay.
To the point where I almost thought at one point we were going to adopt them.
Because you grew very close to them.
Absolutely.
And they to you.
Yeah. And, my children were starting to have a really big issue with it, especially my youngest, because he was only 7 when I started taking children in.
That's very close to the kids that you were bringing in.
Exactly.
As younger siblings,
Yeah.
basically.
And I don't think he was ready for it. I think he still wanted mommy. He still wanted my
course.
attention, and he still wanted. So he started going to see a therapist. And he started having a lot of issues. He was having problems in school. His grades went down. So then I was like, all right, something here is not working.
Right.
And I would never have separated the brother and the sister. And I asked the division to find them an adoptive home. And that's such a hard decision. Oh, it's such a hard decision to have to say it's not working, especially when you love these children.
Right.
That is something that, I also say that through this process, I've learned how to deal with grief and separation. So that's something that you have to learn, because every time a child leaves, you learn to grieve, and you grieve them because you've loved them and you continue to love them. So it's something that's difficult. And that's what a lot of people say to me. When I tell them I'm a foster mom, they're like, well, how do you say goodbye? And I always say, like, my heart has grown bigger and I've learned, but at the same time, you learn to do that as well. And I wouldn't not do it because I'm going to hurt. I'm the adult.
Right.
I'm the one that should be able to deal with my emotions.
Right.
And then help the child, learn how to deal with it.
So this process of loss and grief, although obviously there is a transition for them, you've had to also learn to love and then let go.
Yes.
That's very powerful.
Yes. Because sometimes it's not your decision that the children aren't staying. So then, we also fostered a set of twins. A set of twins who we received at 10 months. Their mother didn't know she was pregnant, and then had her third child, and the child ended up being born drug addicted. So the mother had been using, and then all of the children get removed. And when we received the set of twins, again, I go to a family of 5, and the twin girls were with us for about 8 months. We fell in love with the girls. We loved the girls. And the little brother had come out of the hospital about a month after I had the girls. And the division called me and said, okay, he's coming home. And I was like, whoa, wait, 6? I was like, and a drug-addicted baby? I was like, I don't think I can handle it. I got scared. And then they said, don't worry about it. We have a family who, we think is going to take him. And the other family took him. And then the division, a couple of months later, had to figure out, because they want to always keep the siblings together as much as they can, if we were going to take the baby or if they were going to take the twins. So then the division has to make that choice.
Right.
So that's where it becomes hard, because, for us, we were so attached to these twins. We were hoping to take their brother. 6 months later, I was now ready to take the brother.
Right.
And the division decided, you know what, this other family's a better situation for the child.
Right. And plus the child already adopted, and so the placement was good, so to remove will be another disruption.
So they removed the twins, and they put them where the brother was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
This was after 10 months.
Yeah.
Right?
8 months. 8 months.
So how did you handle that? Because now these were
just crying.
babies, right?
Again, the whole discussion of learning how to deal with grief. We dealt with the grief by crying and by dealing with it. And, initially we told the division, we need a break. We need a break. We need to deal with the loss of not having the girls with us, because we really thought that they were going to be part of our family.
Right.
And, we dealt with it by just going through the motions of how you deal with grief, just like losing a child.
And this is the whole family.
Yes.
Your children, your 3 sons, your
Yes.
husband, yourself as a married couple. Literally, it's a loss to the family.
It is, absolutely.
And you have to prepare them. Like you said, this is a joint decision, so everybody has to be on board, because if not, it would be impossible.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
How do we deal with grief? Because that's a big question. That is the question of our humanity, right? At different levels, loss comes in different forms. In this case, is caring temporarily for children and then having to let them go because they're transitioning to a different home. What works for you? Because obviously this is a very personal process of loss based on our own experiences, based on where we are spiritually,
That's
our
what
faith.
I was going to bring that in. Is it comes down to our faith. You know, I like to think because I have a strong faith and God is my number one in the sense that I believe that everything that I've experienced, it's because of him and thanks to him. So just as much as he brought those children into our lives, you know, it was a lesson for them, a lesson for me. And at that same moment, they're leaving because God has made it okay for them to leave. And I have to be okay with the fact that they're leaving because it is part of their process. And I have to know that it's coming from a bigger source than me. It's not coming from me. It wasn't my decision. But if he's allowed it to happen, it's because it's in their plan to happen.
That's amazing. Those are powerful words. That's incredible, right? They seem
Like they're simple words.
they're
They're simple words.
They're simple words. I mean, because imagine, I mean, you're looking at yourself as an instrument of God's work. That's pretty immense. I mean, for you, that's sort of very natural because of your faith. But me looking at you, if I'm not a person of faith, I would think, I don't understand that. It's powerful.
Right. And then, you know, then I'll turn to the human side of without it being faith is more of, like you were saying before, going through the process of grief. Grief is not easy, but you have to go through the process as opposed to avoiding the process. So in other words, you know, the crying, the sadness, the you know, keeping yourself away from people,
the
denial, exactly.
Right.
Absolutely, allowing yourself to go through the stages, because I believe that as humans we're going to go through it whether we want to or not. It's just human nature that our body and our human experience has to experience it to be able to say, you know, to be able to be okay with it afterwards.
Right. No, it's interesting as you're saying that. I'm trying to remember the stages of grief in terms of that initial stage of denial. It's hard to get to that point. Then you kind of sort of start bargaining. Okay, maybe there's another way. Right. But in this case, it's also slightly different where you do get to acceptance knowing that they're moving on, hopefully to something better, something in transition that's going to be more permanent. With this a sense of comfort to that?
Yes.
Right.
And again, I think that's where the faith comes in, where I'm accepting it because it is not my will, it is his will. And if that's what he believes is part of their process, then I have to be okay with it.
Right. And it allows you to accept and move on.
Yeah.
And how soon after that, how long does it take you to get over grief and loss? Is there a timeline that you think?
No, I think everyone's
how does that
different.
happen?
No, I think everyone's different, and I think everyone's experience with grief is different. So I don't think that there is a timeline because depending on the situation of who it is that you're losing,
right,
and how, you know, is how long your grieving process may be.
The degree of the relationship that you have
Absolutely.
between the person and yourself or the group of people within the family.
Absolutely.
That's remarkable. And what happened after that?
Well, that brings me to another topic within the same topic.
Sure.
So there's something.
Remember, this is free association. We can talk freely
about anything. There's something called respite care. Okay, and this is something that I would advise. And people that ask me about foster care, I tell them to start with respite care. Okay, respite care is when you're taking care of children from the foster care system when their foster parents have to go on vacation or if they have to go on a business trip and they can't take the children with them. So it's a limited time. You know when it starts, you know when it ends, you know, so you know that, and the child comes pretty much almost prepared to say, okay, I'm going to be here for a weekend. I'm going to be here for a week. I'm going to be here for 2 weeks, depending on the situation. So after our loss, we started with respite care. So it was almost like restarting, getting familiar, you know, with the children and the process. And, you know, we took kids for a weekend and then we took kids for a week until we were ready to say we were, you know, ready for another full placement.
That's fascinating.
And I advise that for anyone that wants to do foster care and just try it out. I mean, it gives you that experience of what it's like to have that child in your home to see if it's something you're interested in, something you really want to do.
So it's a brief, determined amount of time, whether it's a weekend, whether it's a week, and then it's basically transitioning into understanding how to bring someone into your home temporarily and then letting them go because, so it's a good introduction to how to let go, right, which is good. That makes sense. So so you actually you did it backwards, right? You went,
Yeah, I did.
right?
Because I didn't know about it. Then that's what I mean. Like,
Oh,
these
that's
are things that
interesting.
people don't tell you. Like, these are things that I guess, why I was interested in podcasting and doing a podcast and talking about it.
Right.
It's because I feel like I have this knowledge. I have these things that I've now
Yes.
experienced that I now know. And people ask me questions all the time about it. When they find out I'm a foster mom, they're like, what's it like? Okay, what's the hardest? How do you let go? And I hear so many people tell me, I'd love to do it, but I just can't imagine leaving, a child leaving my home. Once they're in my home, they're mine. But when you actually experience it and the situation doesn't work, then you understand why sometimes this child needs to move on. And I always say it's for something better for the child.
Right.
Obviously, like I told the first two that I had, there was something that I was missing. I wasn't educated enough. I didn't know enough how to handle their situation, to combine it with my situation to make it work.
Right.
It's no one's fault.
Right.
They did nothing wrong.
Right.
I feel like I did nothing wrong. I feel it was just situational. It wasn't meant to be.
Right. It's how do you transition
Mm-hmm.
to this new normal, and how do you prepare yourself for that? Right. And
Mm-hmm. Right.
education is key.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
So had
absolutely.
you had the respite experience first, it would have been a more natural order.
Right.
You think? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Very good. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You brought up you have a lot of people that ask you these questions in
They
terms
do.
of
It's really interesting. They do.
how do they know that you're a foster parent before they ask you, or you just sort of like you've known?
I think both my husband and I love to talk about it. So somehow, some way, like when we started to talk about it at the boardwalk,
Right.
It comes up,
Right.
And then now my son, who's darker skinned, and I'm lighter skinned. So I think that in itself allows people to say, okay, well, biologically, if I'm by myself with him, they think, all right, the dad must be either African American or darker skinned because she's not.
Right.
And then my husband, when he walks with the child, they think the same thing.
Right.
And then when they see the two of us together, you can see the people like, huh? And we laugh. We do. We laugh. We're
Right.
like, huh? Yeah, we know what they thought. But now I'm older and I have a baby. So now I get the question asked. They're like, oh, so you're the grandmother. And I'm like, no, I'm the foster mom. And then they're like, foster mom? What's that? And so
then
the
it
conversation
starts.
starts. Yeah.
Do you want to discuss a little more of some of the other children that have come through your home?
I've
Or-
had 18 children come through my home.
18?
I've had 18. Yeah.
18 children.
18.
That
Well,
is incredible.
The baby was 17. And we said, okay, we're done. We have a baby. We're going to adopt him. We think we're done. And then I have a friend who's a foster mom, and she calls me, and she was like, Gloria, you're the only one I trust. She's like, can you do me the favor? Can you watch him over the summer, for 2 weeks over the summer? So, of course, I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, I'll take him on. So we had 18.
And how many years?
It's going to be 6.
You've had 18 children go through your home in 6 years?
Yeah. But, I tell my husband, don't boast about that. Like, that's not something to brag about.
That sounds like incredible.
No, but I look at it like it's 18 that didn't work. And they weren't all permanent. So in other words, I did a lot of respite care. So within those
Okay,
18,
right.
A lot of those were, I'd say more than half of those were respite care. So
Right.
respite care being that I knew that they were short term. I
Okay.
knew that they were coming in for 2 weeks. Or I knew that they were coming in for a weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
I count them as well. Because I say, if you're in my home, you're in my heart. And if you're in my
Right.
heart, then you're part of my family. These children come in, and I like to treat them like,
They're family.
You're one of us.
Right.
My children get, if they get in trouble for doing something wrong, when they come in, I sit down with them and I tell them the rules and I tell them the consequences. So I like to almost have a structured organization. Not always, but
Right.
I like to start them off with that.
Right. There has to be some structured environment,
Mm-hmm.
which is also one of the things that they maybe have lacked. Where
Yes.
the original home that they came from, maybe they
Yes.
didn't have that structure, they didn't have that
Right.
consistency. So this is actually refreshing. Do you see the kids having difficulty adapting to the structure, or does it happen gradually, and is it effective, or is it a struggle?
I don't think they have a hard time with it, but they'll definitely challenge it. Because
Okay.
I believe that these are children in situations that almost get to the point where they don't know whether they're really loved or not because of the difficult situations that they're coming from.
Right.
So they themselves are questioning everything going on around them. I mean, they've been, displaced.
Right.
And then, is this person really going to care for me? This person tells me they love me. They don't even know me.
Right.
So for them, it's like, so yeah, they challenge us, absolutely.
Right.
And they'll challenge the situation. But that's part of the the whole part of allowing them to know how much we do care for them, because we're saying, well, we're not letting you go because you're special and you're valued, and
Right.
and the whole experience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It becomes a confirmation of the love that they hear when you verbalize it, but then they see it in practice.
Right.
Because you're not giving up on them.
Yes.
And they challenge you to see, is this person going to really reject me? Are they going to stick with me and show me that? So to love is painful.
I don't think so.
How would you?
I don't think so. I don't think to love is
But
painful.
also,
I guess because
But there are growing pains to love then, right? There's a growing process because
Right.
we're testing the limits of this love, especially with children. They're testing whether this is real or not, because maybe they've had a lot of parents or significant others that didn't give them that consistency or said one thing and did another. So in reality, it's hard to see what is fact and what's fiction, what's real and what's not,
right.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
It may throw off their instability. That's part of the instability and the emotional imbalance that they bring in when they come into your home, which you have to address, understanding that.
Yes, absolutely.
So it takes a very special, nurturing person to also understand a bit of the psychology, the emotional content that they're going to bring in, that there are some issues that are just going to be present. You have to expect them.
True, but I also feel that I don't know. I think we limit ourselves. We limit ourselves in thinking that we're not capable of doing something when I believe that we are. And maybe that's just my thought in humankind and in people. Like, I believe that you can do anything you want to do, and that's how I treat the children, and that's how I also treat people. Like, when we talk about it, it's like, I'll tell you right now, like, you're capable of doing it. You can do it. If there's something in your soul that says that it's something that you should be doing or something you want to do. Because there are people that say, you know what, I think I want to do this, but then I'm scared. And I think it's that fear factor that people stop, or people won't do it because of that fear factor.
Taking that risk,
Yes.
making that leap.
Yes.
It's like a leap of faith.
Right.
And so initially, that's a very good point that you made, because that's also a very natural inclination. That when we're trying something new, there is a sense of hesitation, because
Right.
is it a fear of failure? Is it a fear that I may not be good at this to the point that I want to be as good as I want to be, or this is not going to work out, or some other reason? What do you think?
That's a good question. Where I'm like, I think it's just a fear of failure. I'm like, I think it's a fear of people pushing themselves to that limit to say, you know, I want to do this, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I mean, this podcast is a reflection of going out on faith and jumping, right, and saying, you know what, why not? Why not do
Absolutely.
something, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is also the beauty of having this interview, that we actually wind up finding like-minded people along the way, right?
Right.
This is why this is critical for you to be here, because there are many people that want to do what you're doing and may not know how to go about it, right? So this actually gives them a sense of, oh, there's a method, there's a process, there's a need. I can step up and enter into that situation, not having all the answers, but a willingness to help,
Yes.
to have compassion, to care.
Yes. And to add to that, I think the fact that I was willing to do the podcast, to be able to not only tell people, like you're saying, the steps and the things, but also to allow people that besides my, besides the fact that I'm speaking of this, there's so many others that are speaking about it, and so many other people to help. It almost becomes like a network of people helping each other fulfill whatever dream that is that person has. So for mine, it was foster care and being able to be a foster mom. And then that knowing that, number one, there is that support system within the
Right.
foster care system.
Right.
And then even if it's not foster care, whatever it is that, you're passionate about right now, is this. And yet you're finding like-minded people, like you're saying, to be able to
Right.
help you to continue, your podcast with different ideas.
Right, to
You
move
know?
this message forward, because it may help somebody.
Yes.
That's the goal. Is
Yes.
somehow, how do we help as many people as possible by listening
Right.
to someone else's experience?
Yes,
That's our common humanity,
absolutely.
right? Tell me a little bit about this beautiful child that you have.
Oh, my baby. I love him. You can see a smile right away on my face. Love him. Well, I'll tell you, I call it my God moment,
Your what?
My God moment.
That's awesome.
Well, when they called me and they we were driving back from Florida and, we're at a rest area. I can tell you exactly where we were. And I'm in the bathroom. Sorry. I didn't want to say that before, but I get the call and I'm like, yes, 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 right. And then I come out of the bathroom and I'm like, my husband's gonna kill me. My husband's gonna be like, what? Because he was a baby. He's the first newborn baby that we accepted that came straight from the hospital, and he's drug addicted. So as I'm saying yes, yes, I'm in my mind going, oh, he's gonna kill me. Oh, he's gonna be like, what?
There was no prior discussion on that decision.
Exactly. That's what I mean. That's why I was like,
Very
oh.
impulsive, very in the moment, and boom.
Yes. So I came out, and then
They did catch you at a vulnerable time.
But I came out of the bathroom and I said, we need to sit and talk now. And I was with my boys, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, no, like right now. And they're like, what? And I'm like, when we get home, we're gonna be having a baby come home in a couple of days after we get there. And they're like,
wow, what a
and I was
bombshell.
like, okay, wait, are you guys okay with this? So after I said it, then I'm asking them for permission. We're like, all right, we always talk about this as a family. Are you okay with it? Are you okay with it? And of course, at that moment, they're like, yeah. And it was one of those things that I kept praying to God and saying, God, was this right? Did I make this decision? Like, was this the right thing? And I kept praying and I kept praying, and I said, I need a sign. I need a sign from you, God. Like, tell me this was the right thing, that this baby's meant for us and it's going to work out. And because I knew my husband was hesitant, I knew the kids were hesitant. Like, everyone was like,
it's a big decision.
It's a drug addicted baby. He's coming from the hospital. We've never had this experience before. The baby didn't have a name. And they kept saying, the baby has no name. The baby's in the hospital. And I'm like, okay. And I'm asking for this sign. And right before the baby left the hospital, they call us and they're like, okay, the baby has a name. And we're like, what is it? And they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to say his name. Sorry. Okay. I'm like, they said his name. And, my husband looks at me, and when I told him the name, and my husband goes, that's the nickname my father called your father. Both of our fathers are deceased.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, I think this baby's meant to be. Because
Wow.
my father's full name was Alvaro. His nickname wasn't Al. Like, Hispanics, we didn't call him Al. Like, everyone called him Alvaro. Like, they called him by his name.
Alvaro.
And the fact that his father called my father that as a nickname, and both of our fathers were not here, it was like that light went off, and we just looked at each other, and we
Wow.
nodded. We're like, all right, we'll take him. Like, this is meant to be.
That's a sign.
Yes. So then the baby comes home, and then he was born on the 26th. My father was born on the 26th, but different months. The baby's December. My father was January. The baby was supposed to be born in January, but he was early, so it was in December.
And how long has your dad been deceased?
At that point, it had only been 6 months.
6 months.
6 months. My father had just passed away in September, and the baby came to us in December. September, October, November, December. No, 4 months.
Wow.
4 months. His father had been passed 6 years, I think. I think 6 years he had passed at that point.
So that loss of your father was very fresh. It had just
Yes.
happened. So you were
Yes.
going through that moment of loss again. How do we deal with grief and loss, and how does that happen, right?
Yes.
And where are we in the moments when things come to us? So you were actually you were
Vulnerable.
going through your
Yes.
the process of loss and,
And
grief.
another reason why I was asking, and praying to God, saying, like, is this the right moment? Like, should I really be doing this? Like, and I had a lot on my plate. So to add to all this, I was working on my second master's for counseling, and my internship was going to start.
Wow.
Like, there was a lot going on at home, and
You
my
ha-
husband was
you
like,
have 3 children.
yes, and all this.
You have a full-time job.
Exactly. So my husband was like, are you sure this is the right time? And that's why I kept praying. I was like, I don't know if this is the right time, But I say God is good, and he made it happen where he gave us a sign to allow us to know this is meant to be. And we all needed to be on board because while I did my internship, my husband had to stay home with the baby.
And you ask for a sign, and you get a sign. That's pretty remarkable.
And then probably 2 months after we've had him, so we've had him for 2 months, we're falling in love with the baby and everything. Then they're like, oh, by the way, did you know he's Colombian?
Wow.
We were like, wait, he's Colombian? How does it, and again, he's a dark-skinned baby, so we're like, how does this happen? And they're like, oh no, the mom is half Dominican, half Colombian. And I was like,
And you always wanted to adopt a
from
Colombian
Colombia.
baby.
It's like full circle, here we go. And I was like, God, you are so good. You are so
That
good
is
because
remarkable.
you have literally answered all of our prayers, given us signs enough to say hello, if you're not listening, then there's an issue because we were listening and we took it as a wonderful, beautiful sign. And, the baby's now 15 months and we're on our way to adoption. this past week we had our bonding evaluation. We've done paperwork, and the adoption is hopefully, in our near future.
How remarkable it is that as you're saying that, in a moment of vulnerability that you're going through, a miracle presents itself and you say yes. By you saying yes, it just opened up all the possibilities in the world.
And I want to take that moment to tell everyone out there that sometimes we get asked for things and you doubt it, you fear it. But I really just want to say, follow that instinct. I believe all of us have that inner instinct that we doubt, we question. But really, if I'm here for anything, it's not just foster care, but it's to tell you, follow your inner instincts. Say yes when you think it's a no because of fear. Don't let fear stop you in doing something that might be bigger than you can never imagine it being. If I made myself clear.
No, I think that's a very good point. I mean, you said yes to a life. You said yes to being there for a baby, a helpless child, and without you knowing all these things that were going on, that became a miracle after a miracle, just by you being open and saying, yes, I am willing to do this. Mm-hmm. And then it also gave you some deep confirmation of your faith, which is even really a great sign for you as a human being in terms of your faith journey. That's incredible. All manifested in love.
Yes.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. So now the baby is 16 months?
15 months.
15 months
Mm-hmm.
old. And how are your sons? Because
they love him.
This is a baby,
Yeah.
right? Newborn.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a newborn coming into the family.
They love him. They've been great with him from the beginning. They're older now. So now they're 13 and 15 and 22, my oldest. So for them, it was just not so much, I think, like a play partner, because obviously there's such a big age difference.
Right.
But more of, here's a child that's in need, and we as a family have decided to take him in, and we will treat him like our brother. And they talk about him like a brother. And, they has my brother and my brother this. And so it's been beautiful for me to watch and see them now take a more mature aspect. And they get asked by the division when, the caseworker comes, they have to be present at the visits. And they get asked, how do you feel about it? And they're like, we're ready to adopt him. We love him,
Right. So they need to also hear their opinion in terms of, because he's really going to be fully integrated into the family permanently. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, as you were saying that, I met him in Atlantic City when we went. Mm-hmm. We were at the conference, the teacher conference.
He looks more like your child than mine.
He's beautiful. He's a beautiful child. I was like, oh my God, look at this kid. He's just adorable, just filled with life. He's got this beautiful smile, and I happened to just see you just. Not by coincidence, because nothing happens. It just happens because it was supposed to happen. And that's where I met your husband. I met your sons. Mm-hmm. You have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
Beautiful family.
Thank you very much. I do. I'm lucky. I'm blessed. Again, this is why we started, another reason why we started the process or this journey was I looked at my family and I said, you know what? I'm blessed. God gave me, a husband. We have a loving relationship. And then we have, these children that someone else can learn from this and it can help someone else. So why not bring them into this situation? So because of God's blessings, we did it.
Yeah. How many blessings do you think that you have received along the way? How has the quality of your life improved as a result of what you're doing?
Immensely. I think, like I said before, every child brings a gift. So for me, I've learned that I have to be more patient. I've learned that I have to even be more active with my own children and taking them out and doing things with them and just learning psychologically. I went back to school for it. The reason why I did counseling was so I can learn how to manage these children that are coming into my home with these, issues, these big problems. And how can I, be a better parent, be a better mom,
A better wife.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you think that this has actually developed your faith? What would you say about your faith. I mean, faith in general is it's a general statement, but each one of us walks
Right.
a faith walk that's very specific to our own lives, our own situations, our own. How do you think that this has shaped your?
Strengthened it. Absolutely, because just with the story that I just explained, it was God, there with me alongside me, and then giving me like those little cues saying, yeah, I'm real. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you ask for a sign, I'm giving you a sign. So, not only with that situation, I think with the other ones as well, where, God has always been present, but, I've needed him along the way, because sometimes it comes to the point where, you have to go to him, and him always being there. But it definitely has strengthened my faith.
And how do you think that your children see your faith journey? How has that affected their faith?
I'd like to think, that their faith is also strengthened through this. I believe, because I talk about it a lot, and I do mention to them that, every morning we're thankful and give blessings for what we have, and, God's been good to us. So we have to thank him all the time and just have a lot of gratitude for what we have.
Right. And the rewards are evident. They are receiving their successes and their rewards in their journey of life as well, right? They're successful. They're moving along. They're healthy. They have
Yes.
the mind-body spirit relationship is critical.
Yes,
But you're also
absolutely.
doing something which is remarkable. You're also modeling for your children what it is to be a husband and wife that communicate, that get along, that can agree to disagree but have discussions, and also walk together in this faith journey. That's huge today, right? Because how many
Yeah.
families don't do that or don't have that kind of relationship of respect, of loyalty, of love? There's so many components that you learn that in the family, and you're giving them. I mean, that is the original church. Is your home, right?
No, it's true. Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't think of it like that. I've never seen the church as our family unit, and I think I like looking at it like that, just because we always think of the church as the place to go.
Right, a building over there.
Yeah, the building over there, exactly. Where if you're looking at it as in, your home, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because you are the queen, your husband's the king, right? And your faith is going through you. It's like Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve become this process by which they teach us how to have a relationship with our Creator, whatever that means for you, and personally. And how critical is that today? You think? I mean, obviously we work and we see a lot of families, a lot of children. How critical do you think that is? That is it something that I think that you think would
Oh,
actually help a lot of families?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, going back to our work, I think in our job, there's so many. It's interesting because lately we've talked a lot about divorced couples in my classes, and I've seen it in the children, and I think
The
that,
students and the parents going through divorces?
yeah, there's
Okay.
a lot. There's a lot going on now. I think more than I'd say maybe 5 years ago,
Right.
just in conversation with the students and in relationships, and I think that not that it goes back to faith, but I think that the faith helps your marriage and your situation,
Right.
but I also think that it's something that helps the children if they're going through a difficult situation.
Right.
So being that I'm seeing so much of this, it's almost like, okay, where is that? Where's the faith at home?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that I would.
And I'm sure that the kids, I mean, this happens to, we work with similar kids at the school, and those children, those students. I hear a lot of stories. As a social worker,
Of course.
I hear a lot of stories. And even this week, I heard a story that was just very profound. Like, when you take the time to listen to what our kids bring into the school, what they're carrying, separation at home, broken families, it really has a lot to do with they come in and we're trying to educate them, give them knowledge, but emotionally they just need time to heal because they're going through a process of grief and loss.
Absolutely.
And that's what's even this week. I learned one of the kids was the parents are separated. They're going through very difficult times this past year. Plus, we throw in COVID and this whole process of COVID, which is now all that has affected this child, him and many others, I'm sure, because every one of them that I speak to come in with this type of need to discuss, to talk, and understanding grief and loss, which is a powerful, powerful thing. And they don't know how.
And I definitely, like you're saying, I think, COVID had a big effect on all of our families. It had a
Absolutely.
big effect on my family. It had a big effect, I think, on all of our families. But I don't think that some people, how can I say this without sounding bad? But like people in higher administration are aware of what the children are going through. We know that social emotional learning or social emotional needs are important for our children.
It's critical.
But do we really know how much it's impacting them? Or, so I think there's a big need to deal with the emotional, aspect of our students and what they're going through.
It is. No, I agree. And I think that that's also being who you are in your own faith journey and who you are as a person, as a human being. You're impacting the children. The role that I do, they're looking at us and we're modeling for them what it is to be attentive, what it is to listen to them, what it is to take the time and ask them, because it shows that we care, that we have compassion. It's like, what's going on? Just asking a simple question as that allows them the freedom to speak freely. And also, I follow up with some of the parents, because when they speak to me, because of the role that I have in the social work role, and the parents tell me, we know that this is hard on our children. We're going through our own struggles as well.
Right.
And then you hear the stories that the parents tell you, primarily mothers. I'm sorry to say that a lot of fathers are not present in the divorce. The children usually stay with the mother. Mm-hmm. This maternal instinct, and it's a big struggle. And the children still have to handle that, both boys and girls. How do we form healthy relationships with our parents? And in the divorce, you're dealing with the conflicts and the issues, the same thing that you're dealing with when you have children come into your home. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of these children came from what we call dysfunctional families, or families that have had a lot of pathology and drug abuse and things of that nature, but just families that are just sort of like moving on. And what happens to the children? They're sort of lingering in midair. And it's very difficult, but I think the role that you're doing in the school is powerful. When we go in there, they're looking at us, and you are more than just a teacher for them. You are a maternal, caring human being that really is taking the time to even ask them, how are you doing today? And waiting to listen for a response.
Well, I think because of what we're talking about. I mean, I think, that these children need it,
Yeah.
The children, are all going through a difficult, and I think maybe that's forgotten a little bit, where like we're dealing with, where like the children are also going through a very emotional, like difficult time.
Right.
You know, for them as well.
Yeah, they're going through a lot of loss as well, in different forms. I mean, the separation of parents is a loss.
Absolutely.
Right? And we've had COVID as also, a lot of parents and grandparents have passed away as a result of the disease, and they've not been able to properly grieve this loss or speak to someone. No, I think that's incredible. In relation to what would you like to, one of the things that you said before, that a lot of parents come to you, a lot of folks ask you, how does one go about this? Mm-hmm. What do you think is the first step? What should they do off the top, other than speaking to someone? Because obviously you're the first point person that they say, oh, let me speak to Gloria.
Right.
How do I go about this process?
You mean besides going straight to DCP&P?
Right. So once you do that,
I would say one, is obviously going straight to, DCP&P. I think finding someone that is a foster parent, someone that's gone through the system, that would be helpful, because, there's also another organization. It's called Umbrella.
Umbrella?
Umbrella with an E. And that organization is actually like one that gives us education, and they form like support programs and support groups. And so that's another organization that they can reach out to get help for as well. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So then initially it's the respite care to sort of start.
I only recommend that because I think it's easier, so you know what you're getting yourself into, and you notice, and also, they should be aware of the fact that, every situation is going to be different. Every child is different, just like we are as humans. So, it's not about, going from one child to another child to try to find that right situation. But if, you have a horrible experience with a certain child from respite care, it's more about getting that child the help that child needs, and allowing that foster family to deal with the child, and allowing them to know what's going on. Right. But also realizing that, it's just, there's so many ways that they can help. Even if they can't help, let's just say with fostering, once I get a child, I have to go out and do all of their initial shopping. Now, the division does give us that initial check to help us, but Even offering a meal. I had a woman once actually at a supermarket say to me, she noticed the child, and then she gave me her name and her phone number, and she said, I'm going to cook you a lasagna.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, thank you. I didn't know what to say. But it was because, she realized obviously I'm an adoptive mom, I'm a foster mom, But it was one of those things that,
That's wonderful.
there's always ways to help. And
Right.
I guess that's my other point. It's just
Right.
that if you can't foster, just being able to reach out to someone. Because I literally wanted to cry in the store. I was like, oh my God, I was so touched. I was like, that's so nice. Because people just don't do that,
Right.
But if you feel it in your heart to help, then definitely reach out to one of the organizations and find a way to be a part of it and help.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. You give me the impression that you have a sort of positive, a positive approach to humanity, that you see humanity being more good than bad, that
I do.
you see a lot of hope, you see a lot
I
of
do.
faith.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think it came from my father. I don't know, I think so. He was a very good man, and I think we came from a very poor background where I think I was humbled as I've moved and grown and learned and seen more. But I also think I had a rough upbringing as a female in my life. And I was a single mother with my oldest son. I was a single mom. So as a single mom, you see things a little bit different, I think. And you realize that life is hard. Life can be really hard. And then when you start, actually succeeding and being able to accomplish things, all of that combined, I think, makes me a very positive person. And sometimes you have to go through these really difficult times to then appreciate the good times.
Right.
But I think in general, I agree with you 100%. I do see the world and I see the good in people, and I definitely believe there's more good than bad. That's just my focus. Yeah.
And it has been realized in your life, right? I mean, your outlook has actually produced tremendous positive experiences, not just for you and your immediate children, but also for every child that has gone through your home. They've received a portion of that love that you have has gone with them. So in that sense, it's still growing.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that the children that come to our home, even if it's just to realize what a family looks like, a mother, a father, and children, then we've done that much.
Right.
To teach a child that you can have the same. You can have. I'm full of stories, and just remind me of another story.
This is the place for stories.
I was asked to see the same little girl who was one of my first, one of my first placements, and I was asked to see her again, and they were looking for a new home for her. And when I went to see her, her foster mom tells me, there's something wrong with her. And I said, what's wrong? And then she goes, she says she wants to marry a white man, and she wants to go to a castle. She wants to own a house with a three-car garage, and she wants to have a pool in her backyard. And I'm going, that's my house. She's not crazy. I was like, oh, you all this time you thought she's crazy? I was like, ma'am, she's not crazy. She lived this. This was her life. She wants that life again. And I said, and she can marry whoever she wants. And she can, go visit the castle in Disney. I said, and she can, buy herself a nice big house by going to school and working. But it was just the limitation that sometimes people have, that it was sad to see that she was seen as someone that was not, she was mentally
to
ill.
reality.
She wasn't connected to reality because she was
Right.
thinking all these things, but yet it was what she experienced.
Right. So you placed this, she lived a dream in your house. That's incredible.
But it's also hard because then when they
Right.
leave, I think about that. I think
Right.
about like, oh, this poor child lived this life, and hopefully, which is why I pray for them all, is that they do have a happy life. So then, back to her story was that it was either our home or for her to live with all her sisters in another home. And I said, why would you even call me? Why would you even ask me? Her place is with her siblings, with her family. Like, I didn't even think I even had, I didn't think I should have been called.
Right.
As an option for her, because
Right.
she had an ability to be in a house with the rest of her sisters, or to be by myself, but to be with me by herself and my children, but that's not her blood.
Right. Her biological
know?
children. Right. Her
Yeah.
sisters, her siblings.
Yeah.
But yet that, like, as you said before, God has a plan for you. That child needed to be there for you. That had to be a lesson for you.
Yes.
Right. And what you did with that child is place a seed that is also going to grow in her mind. She knows that that is real. That's a reality.
And her brother, again, 360. I had a friend of mine who told me that she had a new foster son, and she gave me the first initial. And in my heart, I said, "Oh my God, it was my first baby." And sure enough, I called her the next day and I said, "Can I please get a picture of him?" And she sends it to me, and in my heart,
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my God, that's my first baby." I was like, "I want to see him again. I want to." She's like, "I'm taking him in," and I was like, "God is so good. He's placing my baby with someone that I know, and I can see him again."
That's wonderful.
So she takes him in, and then she says, "Can he come to your house? I want him to see you again and see everyone again." So he comes back to the house. So now you're talking 5 years later.
Wow.
Or like 4 years later, right? He comes to the house, and he's like, "Oh, I remember this place." He was young, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember you guys." But he was so little that he really didn't remember us, but he did remember us.
Right.
He had positive memories of
Right.
us.
There was an imprinting of that.
When he
moment.
comes to the house, he says, "Do you still have my toy?" We were like, "Which one? I don't think so. This was a long time ago." And he goes, "No, it was upstairs in my room. Can I go upstairs?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's go upstairs." We go upstairs, and he was like, "The room's still the same. It's just a different color." I'm like, "Yeah, it's still the same." And he goes, "No, it was in this little cubicle thing." And I said, "Oh, wait, we moved that to my son's room. Let's go check." Sure enough, he goes, he opens a drawer, he finds his
Wow.
toy, and he starts jumping up and down. And he was like, "This was my favorite toy. I've had dreams about this toy. I love this." And I was like, "Thank you, God." I was like, "Thank you." And he says to me, "You know, I've been thinking." He's like, "I want to go to Harvard. Do you think Harvard's a good school?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yes, absolutely." I said, "You know what? Yes, and you're going to go to Harvard, and I know in my heart that you're going to achieve great things in life." I said, "So you go after your dream."
That's awesome.
Yeah. Again, I'm full of stories. When it comes to foster care, it's a great experience. It's a great journey.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorites.
That's
one of my
pretty. That's
favorites.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to see him at Harvard.
Me too. Me too. I'll be there at his graduation cheering him on. Yeah.
Now this has been. This is amazing. What you're doing, truly, 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 is miraculous. To use your words, God is using you to truly demonstrate the power of love among human beings, among children who need it the most, because they're bringing you a pure love that is natural, and it's making
Thank
you better. You're making them better, your family. So it's a win-win-win across the board.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
I hope more people do it. I really hope. Even if anyone can help out in different ways, please, by all means, reach out to someone in some way that you can help out. Like the lady said to me at ShopRite, "I'll cook you lasagna." It was so cute. It was really cute.
No, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. This has been a true privilege to speak to you, Gloria.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
No, this is fantastic, and I think that this dream, this idea, is also being realized as we're talking about the dreams, our dreams, the children that you care for, our own personal children, biological children. We create these dreams, and they will live out a dream in the future that we have envisioned for them.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing for children far beyond the scope of your own biological children. You're impacting so many lives, especially the children also that you have in school, the hundreds of children that you have been able to impact. You're impacting people's lives. Their souls are being changed by the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
It seems small.
As you are in education as well.
This is what
Yeah.
we're about. We're making a difference. We are making a difference. We're trying to make something positive, especially in our society today and in our families. Is to make it a difference. To be able to impact, and even Andrew, who's here, who is he's someone that inspired me to become.
Thank you, Andrew.
And our children really are an inspiration to us, and this is the beauty also of being able to evolve, to keep going, to grow. We always have more to give. And what I love about what you're also saying is that of the abundance that you have received, you're passing it forward, and you are the richer for it, because you may have come from humble beginnings materially, right? But now what you had is the riches of the love that you receive from your father and from your mother, from your family, and the example and the faith, which is truly a gift that continually, and it comes full circle, because to have your your son have the same name as your dad,
Yeah.
that is a concrete sign to a prayer that's been answered.
To me, it is. Absolutely.
That is beautiful. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have any last words or anything else that you would like to? Words of wisdom, let's just call it, because
Words of
you're
wisdom.
filled with wisdom. You're filled with so much.
I think the last thing I'd like to say is for those that are listening to just be true to who you are and follow that intuition inside you. You know, everyone has something to do and be in life, and I followed mine, and I never would have thought when I was young and partying and doing my things, I said I would never get married, and I never thought I'd be a mother to so many children. And to have lived the life that I've lived, it's a blessing. So I say follow that inner gut, that intuition that you have to follow your dreams, go for them.
Awesome words of wisdom. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for joining us again. We hope to hopefully see you soon. And again, this is Free Association Over Coffee. I'm Luis Hernandez. This is Ms. Gloria Hunt. We thank you again.
Thank you for listening.
And thank you for the privilege of your time. And until we meet again, somewhere in time, have a good day. Bye-bye.